off our networking right now, but we're thinking about it. And then we also have, you know, several compute nodes. I guess one other big thing is, so we're running Red Hat Enterprise Linux 7.1. We're using their Enterprise Openstack product. Right now, we're not using a lot of the extra kind of projects, so we basically have the core, you know, 6 core projects, and we're working to refine our Salometer setup right now. I guess another thing, we just recently, we have a dev environment also that we just recently upgraded from Icehouse to Juno. Our prod environments are at Juno. And then I guess, Will, you were going to say some stuff about Ceph.
From a storage perspective, for the most part, we're 100% Ceph. We use Ceph for Cinder backends, and we also use Ceph for the instance storage. We have 3 distinct Ceph environments. We have 2 production environments in each one of our data centers. We also have a development environment, which is by far our biggest environment. We have about 210 terabytes in dev. It spans roughly 12 OSD nodes and 3 monitor nodes. Production is 4, soon to be 8 OSD nodes and the same 3 monitor nodes in each location. It's been pretty successful so far. We've learned a lot of lessons around Ceph and how to architect it, what not to do, what to do. Current architecture is we use ECS C240 M4s with 20 10K SAS drives, and we use SSDs from the journal partitions for Ceph. That's pretty much how we architected that. It's worked very well. Our initial pull on Ceph was all SATA, not so successful, really high I/O latency, really high A wait times, a lot of user complaints. So you got to be really, you know, there's a lot of times you see a lot of advice out there. Just, you know, throw a lot of cheap disk at Ceph and it'll get better, but no, it doesn't get better. So just be careful how you architect it. Cool. And just one thing to call out too, this is like interactive too, so feel free to shout out any questions you have.
Jeff, you have a mic back there with you? Okay, if there are questions in the audience, we want this to be as interactive as possible. Please feel.
I don't want to just like us to.
Like spew a bunch of stuff about our environment, right? So if you have questions, please, you know, shout out, hey, I have a question, or raise your hand. Jeff will get you a mic and we'll get you talking. So anything else you want to add on this slide? Here's another one after this about our deployment pipeline.
Nope. I guess, like I said, if anyone has any questions, just feel free to holler. Don't wait till the end. Just holler. I'm sorry? What controllers are you using for your disks? Controllers? So this is one area where we're kind of, I wouldn't say we're not happy, but Cisco UCS hardware, it's kind of, that's the hardware you get. So we've kind of had to work with what we've gotten, and in the past it's been a little tougher because a lot of mega RAID controllers, you have to do like 20 RAID 1s just to get the disks to be presented to the operating system. But now on the newer ones, it's actually a lot improved because they have JBOD modes with their RAID controllers, the mega RAID controllers. So I think that's actually, instead of a bunch of different choices with UCS hardware, I think there's just kind of one choice now, and the card's a lot more robust. So yeah, we've had a lot better luck with that one so far. So.
Great question. Anything else? Nope. All right, we're going to move on, look at our deployment pipeline here that we have between our 3 environments. Does someone want to speak to that?
Yeah, I mean, I guess just we kind of follow a standard. We have multiple environments, so we move our changes through. So we start with, we have a couple sandboxes. Then we go to a development environment that we have live users on that are kind of doing their POC, CI pipelines and stuff like that. And then we have 2 production regions that then we will ultimately move our changes into. We have a couple sandboxes, and one is like used really to prepare for dev, but then we have sometimes 2 other ones that we test out new features in and just kind of try things out. So.
And I'll just add, long term, what we're hoping to get to with these sandboxes is to, you know, always be running what we're running in prod, but always also having, you know, forward-looking. So, you know, potentially running, you know, right off of master upstream, having, the different releases that we're ultimately targeting. And if you were listening carefully, you probably heard that our upgrade was from Icehouse to Juno in dev, and we're already at Juno in prod. So we're kind of getting caught up to get this into the right state where we're actually moving forward, sandbox to dev to prod.
So can someone speak to actually why we did that? Why did we go to Juno right in prod?
Well, yeah, I guess we grew really fast. And so there was a huge demand to have a prod environment, and we had the option of, we only had so many man hours.
Sure.
And so...
The Neutron, VRRP is really why we went Juno and prod before we had that dev, is we wanted the VRRP capability of Neutron, which turned out to be a really good decision.
Yeah, we really like that. HA routers, HA virtual routers.
Great. Anything else to add here, guys? Any questions? Not a single question? Python. There's a mic right next to you there.
I'm sorry I mentioned Cisco.
No, it's quite hey, you know me, I'm the most curious that we'll ever have, so I'm more than happy to hear weaknesses as well. It's the only way we'll improve. But a question that I have for you guys is, how did you go about defining what the size of each of the availability zones is? And what about the size of the regions themselves?
So I'd say the availability zones, they're up there, and we just decided, since there's the concept of availability zones in OpenStack, that we would define those to be one chassis of blades. But I mean, in reality, I think we're not really utilizing that concept in there. It's available for our users to, if they want to get some diversity of where their VMs end up. I don't think a lot of people are using that concept yet at our scale. I think the availability zone is kind of a small area. So, but yeah, we just decided that was like when we were like one rack of servers, we picked an availability zone to be a chassis, because then we'd have three.
Is it a chassis?
Literally what it was.
It's a chassis right now. So I think as our scale grows, we'll start to take advantage of that availability zone concept more. So yeah, like the choice of that was just basically that was the smallest thing we could do. And then as far as like the size of our, we had just a couple big customers that wanted to use OpenStack, and we sized it on that plus a little bit more what they wanted.
Okay.
Great. Got another question.
Great, fire away.
So you guys had stated at the beginning that the networking component was not separated from the rest of the services that you guys have available. Now, are there plans to separate the networking component? So I'm assuming what you meant by that is that the Neutron node is running on the same servers as your database functions as well?
Yep, it's part of the control nodes. So yeah.
Yes, and we are splitting that out. We're going to do that in dev initially, and then move that on. That same concept into prod. And going forward, yes, we'll keep the network isolated from.
I think it's kind of been becoming not just a capacity concern, but more kind of a convenience concern too, because whenever we want to perform maintenance on one of the nodes, it's like you have to bring it down. One of them has Neutron on it, which has been the cause of it.
Right, and that's been kind of something that's been plaguing us for a while, is having Neutron on the same node as everything else. We were bitten by that more than once, so splitting it out is going to help us a lot.
Yeah, for instance, in our dev environment, what do we have? On the order of 500 Neutron routers.
800.
Is it 800? Okay, 800 Neutron routers. And so, not only separating that out so you're not mixing that load, but once you do that, then it becomes a little easier to scale that out if you want to go to 4 or 5 Neutron nodes.
Good catch there, Will. I think you got it oftentimes.
Relearn to drink water.
All right. Anything else, Adam? No? Okay. Any other questions? Yeah.
What installer do you use to put your system together?
We used Packstack plus Shell.
Can you repeat the question? I'm not sure everyone heard it. What installer did we use?
Yeah, there's one installer. The answer is we used Packstack and then a whole bunch of shell scripts to make it HA after Packstack. So kind of the background with that is we started out our dev environment probably about 12 months ago, and that was completed by me and someone else who's no longer here, who works at Red Hat now. And we kind of developed this method of just doing PackStack as the base with shell scripts to expand to HA. This is before we really had installers available to us that could do what we wanted to do. And we just kind of took that shell script plus PackStack ideology and delivered that in prod, because that was in March, and we haven't really had to deliver a new environment since then. But we're working on a chef pipeline, and we haven't had a chance to deploy that yet. But
Right.
in the next couple months, we'll be refining that.
Yeah, so when we went to do the upgrade from ISOs to Juno, you know, we sort of had a self-imposed deadline to get that done as we're going into Target retail holiday, right? So we had to make a decision. We had a number of different options. Do we build new controllers and then swing everything over? Do we use our pipeline? Is it ready? Do we upgrade in place? And ultimately, after a lot of discussion, and we looked around and said, we're going to do the upgrade in place, and we can get into more exactly how they went about it, I think, as we go on.
You want to talk about some of the challenges we've had with our chef deployment pipeline? Or where we're at in its maturity, I guess?
There was, to make so we started with the community chef cookbooks for OpenStack, and they were missing kind of the HA component, so we had to write that. So we ended up writing a pacemaker cookbook that we couldn't really find a good one for that, so which we'd like to open source. And then it didn't have an HA concept in it, so we had to create some cookbooks that kind of set up Galera for us, and running all the services under pacemaker. So it's I think it's not been out of the ordinary amount of work, but it was just a little bit more work than we first anticipated. But
We have a functional chef pipeline. We just need to do a little bit more QA, I think, before we're ready to put that into production and try to get some CI around it, automation.
Great. Thanks. Any other questions? Yeah.
How do you go from basically from when you're doing upgrades, you have thousands of servers at some point. How do you plan on? I mean, is your model really? I'm going to upgrade all of dev, which is version whatever, and then my staging or production or however many environments you have in there. Are those going to be actually different, or are you planning is there going to be a different plan to get to more servers at a bigger scale?
yeah, we'll definitely need to add more orchestration in, because right now it's hand going on each server and kicking off.
The concern here is that I upgraded all of dev. I've run into a specific problem that actually is an OpenStack thing. I don't have any environment to test that in because I've upgraded to but not production.
That's where our sandbox comes in. So the idea there is at any point we can, tear that down and build it up at any version that we've deployed. So in fact, as we were preparing for the Juno upgrade, we did exactly that. We used LVM snapshotting to be able to start at a known state, apply upgrades, apply patches, test, whatever, and then go back. So we're going to be formalizing that more going forward to be able to do that, basically to give it any version that we need to be at.
Yeah, I have to give a call out. A guy on our team, Chris Fields, did a lot of work on writing a script to make it super easy with the LVM scripting to snapshot and roll back. And we went through deploying from IceHouse to Juno, in a week.
Made it 15 times. Frictionless to just try it over and over again. So,
and then just refined our playbook and just made sure any glitches we saw, we just would refine that until we had a perfect deployment.
Great. Any other questions? Chris Fields, you want to raise your hand back there? You got more questions on that? That's the guy that asked back there. Thank you, Chris.
supposed to be asking questions.
Yeah, you're our plant, Chris. You're supposed to ask a question.
Hey guys, I have a question. Who are your customers, do they know what they're doing, and how are you handling the client education piece?
Great question. That's a challenge for us.
Yeah, awesome question. Some of them know what they're doing, some of them don't as much. So we've got a great community of users who do know what they're doing that help out the users that don't, which is really awesome. It takes a lot of the load off of us. So we use HipChat, so a lot of that happens just in chat. People post out questions, and we've got the power users who really have great answers that help out a lot. We of course jump in there as we need to. We're also currently putting together some coursework for OpenStack, and more broadly just kind of cloud development in general.
Okay. I think it's a good call too that while we aspire to be agile, we're probably not what we call truly agile, but I think HipChat is a case where a lot of these like agile tool sets can really help, where we have this, connect people of like minds together in an enterprise and let them, let people post problems, let people post solutions, ask, I think it's been a great help, especially to us from the support perspective, because we are kind of a eat our own dog food kind of team where we deploy, support,
And I'll tell you the best part about HipChat is the users end up answering way more questions than we do, which makes it much nicer to be administrators.
Okay, great. Thanks, Chris. Yes.
Is it up to your customers to make sure that they're spread across availability zones, or do you have anybody who helps them with that, or do you have a gating process for who goes into prod?
Well, you guys can jump in, but I think we are kind of, especially in dev, kind of laissez-faire about how people use it. When we get to production, there's a little more rigor on our product owner, Matt Allis, is not here. I think he kind of, when somebody requests a production tenant, they get kind of a vetting process. What kind of automation are you using? How are you planning to do this? Are you just gonna spin up an instance and run Oracle? Yes, then get out of here and go somewhere else, right? So, I mean, we do have some rigor on that, but like I said, there needs to be a place for each to cut their teeth, and that's kind of where our development environment is for. Make mistakes, figure out how to use it.
It seems like there's a lot of immature behavior, I guess, within the development environment that we need to educate our customers on, right? So,
Well, yeah,
I don't know if I can do that.
Yeah, I mean, definitely, we can do a better job there.
You gotta learn somewhere.
yeah, right.
This is all new stuff to everybody, so.
Yeah, right. But ultimately, yes, it is the responsibility of the tenant to do the right thing. We don't police it. As we see them doing things that maybe aren't the best, we let them know. Properly using in dev, we don't allow this so much in prod. But if you're doing your own images, well, are you uploading QCOWs or bare images? If you do a QCOW, you're not getting the Ceph copy on right, out of the box, things like that. We have one of our prod customers actually, and they do a lot of things right, but they ended up, spanning some data across their data center. So they've got, code in one data center that's reaching across to the other data center. So it's an evolving process, and it's an iterative process and we're starting to get more and more of that sort of institutional knowledge to do that, right? But it's a process.
Okay, great. In the interest of time, I'm going to keep moving on here.
Got a question?
Go ahead.
Are you guys doing any type of rate limiting at all for IOPS on extended attributes or Cinder or Nova or anything else along those lines? And how do you prevent noisy neighbors?
So luckily we haven't had to worry about that because that's a good question. We don't yet, and so I think there's some ideas about rate limiting the API usage and also finding some solutions for IOPS.
Did you say Ceph?
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's somewhat of a hole in Ceph where it doesn't really offer any quality of service functionality.
Right. Well, it is in the roadmap. We're going to go through all of our flavors and sort of assign some nominal QoS across everything, CPU shares as well as IOPS, and then as we look to the higher end kinds of things, also look to, you know, differentiate some hardware offerings too, and make those available, be different flavors.
So from a Ceph perspective right now, I think it's the philosophy is let's just make sure it's good for everybody and keep the capacity to that point. I know that we're interested in adding some additional tiers of storage, especially probably starting at Cinder. We're looking at kind of experimenting with an all SSD Ceph OSD array, and then also kicking around some possibilities of solid fire and things like that. So.
Any other questions? Okay, I'm going to move on to the next slide here. I'm going to talk about monitoring.
So at Target here, we use Datadog as our solution of service for monitoring. Datadog, if you're not familiar, it's kind of a SaaS solution. So you can post any sort of time series metric data to their website, and then you can mangle it over time into dashboards or graphs or maneuver it how you want it to be. And we just started using it because when we launched our Dev Openstack about a year ago, there really was no accepted internal monitoring solution that was available to us at the time. And they had just started up a pilot of Datadog at Target. So we got on board and we found it was really easy just to get new metrics in whenever we wanted to. They have agents you can put on your system that just does basic host level stuff, CPU, RAM, that kind of junk. But we found it was really easy to write our own scripts and just hit their API and dump any type of information we want. So we have kind of several tiers. Each of those colors is an Openstack region. And we kind of do, the top layer is just from a user perspective. So in the last 4 hours, can they hit any of our APIs? Can they do a Nova service list, a Ceilometer meter list, a Cinder list? Then there's one layer down, which is the actual HA proxy backend. What does HA proxy report as the API backend being available? And then below that, I got some basic Ceph stuff, which we mine from, I think, from the Calamari server that I set up.
Yep, so just as an example, like the Ceph, it's just a testament how easy it is to get stuff in a Datadog. Ceph capacity stuff is just simply screen scraping Ceph-S output. So, I mean,
super simple.
Yep.
And then kind of below that, we got the kind of API response time. So, and that's via the command line. So you can literally just do a bash command and just kind of wrap it in time. So how long does it take for a Go list to respond? And that's this is kind of our main dashboard we look at throughout the day, and it gives us a really good at-a-glance view. What's going on? Is anything broken? How is stuff responded in the last 30 minutes? Are all the APIs up? And because we've been able to iterate so easily with it and just add new metrics very quickly, it's been very good for us. And we hook that into PagerDuty, which if you're not familiar with is another kind of SaaS solution. We use PagerDuty for our alerting. And so if any of the values that we deem important, if they pass a certain threshold, we can send an alert to PagerDuty via webhook or API, which will then send an email or phone call or text or app alert to any one of our team members that's on call with escalation schedules. So it's been very good for us in letting us manage our environment. So if we go to the next real quick.
Yeah, I just want to say I love this slide because we have this sitting up all day as we're working. At a glance, you can see it, and it will flash yellow or green or red if there's an issue with it. And me, who doesn't know much about OpenStack, I can look at it and say, hey, Aaron, what's going on with the heat stack or Ceph, right?
Well, yeah, I was just going to quickly say the yellows are really the interesting thing. Yeah. Stuff that we're not getting paged on, just to kind of start to see, we're starting to see a trend that there's some kind of aberration happening. And it might be totally fine, but it just kind of helps us kind of keep an eye on a trend before it becomes a problem.
And like one of the things too, a lot of people don't, this means a lot to us, but a lot of people see like, 111, what's that mean, right? So Datadog's really good at numbers. Everything's a number in Datadog, so it's not very good at like words. So basically you have to take a number that's good, and if it's 1, then it's good and it's greens, right? So.
But we got the color coding.
Yeah, we got the So trust me, if it turns red, it's not good.
Right. Any questions on that? Okay, let's move on.
So just a very simple extension of that. So if you're looking at our dashboard for the day, the left half of our TV is those numbers, and the other half of the TV, the right half is kind of this stuff, that's our overtime. And so this is just our dev environment, the aggregate of the API response times, just doing like a Nova list and the list of the command line. And this is kind of how we would come in during the day and see, well, has there been any aberrations in the API response time? And so on this this week we've got graph. One thing that we wrestled with for the last week and a half was kind of a regression in Juno, where if we had a router sync event occur from the L3 agent on our Neutron node, it caused the CPU idle time to go down to about 1%. So our CPU and our load average was about 180. And that's reflected in the response time, because anything that talks to Neutron, the response time is going to spike. And so that's kind of what we use to gauge a lot of the problems that we face. It's an example of that. I think we have one more.
Any questions here?
Well, and that's the reason why we want to move our network off too.
Yeah, we've been bitten by it too much.
He was talking about pager duty. When Neutron would kill that box, you'd get lots of pages for glance, unrelated stuff.
So next one is our adoption trend.
Yeah, so the bottom one, I'll start at the top. So this is the number of instances across all three of our environments aggregated together. At the beginning of June, you kind of see a spike. You could ignore the colors and the spike pre-June. That spike was, we, for about 3 weeks, had 2 monitor servers running that were both trying to aggregate the same data together, so they kind of summed. So we got double. The colors don't matter because we were still trying to figure out what all that means. And then right at the middle of June, we kind of understood where we're going. And so that top area section is our dev environment, which is much larger than our prod. And then the lower 2 are our 2 prod regions, and those are kind of at the same amount. So our dev is about 1,700 VMs right now, and both prod is 500 each. So total, we probably get around 3,000 VMs. Small, but for us, it's still pretty good. We like where we're going. Below that is kind of the Ceph IOPS. Before June, it was probably about 80,000, because this was back in the time
Our pre-upgrade Ceph environment was all SATA, and it could maybe do 2,500 IOPS
on a great day.
Yeah.
And then middle of June, we finally got those SSD journals, and we got those we got the 10Ks. 10Ks, and it was very nice. And so it's kind of the same thing. You got the same breakdown between dev and then prod and prod. And so overall, we've had a nice growth pattern, and hope it continues. It's good, going well for us.
So this is really interesting to me as like from a business perspective, just looking at, if you ignore the spike, right, it's a very nice linear trend, right? What do you think is the major driver behind that trend? I mean, we've had capacity for all these people, but what's really driving that growth in our development environment?
Probably maturity of our offering, more awareness of OpenStack and cloud development. I think I'd be lying if I said some of it wasn't just easy access to infrastructure.
Yep.
I'm sure some of that drives it too.
Yep.
You know, you mean I can spin up 10 machines in 5 seconds? That's great.
Yeah. It's a nice organic growth, it seems like, right? Okay. Let's see, any questions on this? Chris Fields, you got a question? Chris? No? Jeff, any questions back there? No? All right. All right. So that's all we have for our slides. Let's take a moment just to talk about some of the other challenges. We need to get Randy talking. Randy, you haven't said a word since you got it.
Come on.
Okay, so really wanted to, the very first thing I want to do is want to give big kudos to the team. So these guys are actually have implemented, have gone through experience of running a real production OpenStack cloud. They have a team that is world class, they really are. Starting with Jeff Einhorn, their fearless leader, then was Scrum Master, and all of these guys have really, they're subject matter experts in one area or another, and they complement each other really well. And when they take a problem by their horns, you know, they really are very successful. And so it's been a tremendous pleasure for me spending the last 6 months being a consultant for these guys.
Yeah, thanks for that. For those that don't know, Randy has been on our team day in and day out for about the last 6 months, helping us prepare and plan for our upgrade from Ice House to Juno in our environment. So thank you for all your help and really made it a seamless one. Let's actually go into that a little bit. So we did that at the beginning of October on a Friday night, and once we started, it took us about 4 hours from beginning to end. We migrated roughly over 300 projects and several thousand VMs with virtually no customer impact during that time. So that's a big kudos to a lot of the work that they've done, a lot of the effort, time, testing, and training that they've put into it. So great job on that. What do you think going into that was kind of the biggest aha moments you had, or learning points, or even pain points, I guess, related to that?
Just being able to, the repetition of being able to do several practice runs and just really work out the kinks. That was it was great to finally have that in place. And
yeah, so basically I think that the two keys were the sandbox environment. Unfortunately, we had sufficient hardware available to be able to do this, to have several environments that were large enough to have multiple computes that we could actually put load on. So it was that, having the sandbox, the ability to snapshot and roll back and do this. And then we used another actual a tool that's very popular in the OpenStack world, and that's Etherpad. And we use Etherpad to do our playbooks. And that was really an excellent asset because it's online, it's collaborative, it evolves as people are going through that. So you'd have a couple of guys run through the initial playbook and they'd write down, the steps and the process, and then you'd hand that off to somebody else, and they'd run through it and they'd find, oh, how come this doesn't work? And the other guy says, well, oh, you got to do this, and it gets to the point where, one person going through it, they'll, you kind of automatically do a few things that you don't even think to write down because it's just second nature, right? So it's this collaborative approach where, you go through it a few times, then you hand it off, you let some other people do it. It's really a great process, and I think that was really key to getting this done quickly.
Well, yeah, and I think it's been a great learning experience for some of the people that were a little newer to OpenStack, is that they all got to go through the upgrade process, hands-on doing it in our sandbox. So it's been a great education, I think.
Yeah, I think that the two major success factors for this upgrade was preparation and execution. So the preparation was all the work that went into it. Basically, the guys really stopped doing what they were doing, working on Chef Pipeline or whatever else they were working on, and refocusing on this upgrade. And so there was all this time and effort was devoted to the successful upgrade. So preparation was big check mark, big positive, that actually led to success during execution.
Yeah, and actually kind of a great anecdote is we were coming up to, we were in the week of the upgrade, and it's Red Hat, so we use satellite for package management. Come Wednesday before our Friday upgrade, we come in, I think it was Wednesday, right, and find that our satellite server had completely melted down. And so I think, credit, again, within 24 hours that was rebuilt, we were back online. We had enough confidence that we had gone through this enough times that we were able to proceed.
Don't run vPlex longs without a cluster file system.
You want to talk about Rally Tempest at all? What we used there for testing?
Tempest?
Yep.
We don't use it super extensively, but we do some smoke testing with Rally Tempest, just to, mostly as kind of a comparison. We ran it once, we ran it again, and we get similar results.
Yeah, and we did a couple things that I guess. Yeah, one of the things we've run into is it doesn't clean up well by itself. So it's a little nerve-wracking to run that against prod or a production-like environment.
I know there are blueprints out there. They know the Rally Tempest guys know that that's an issue. They want to make sure that it cleans up after itself. So, but right now, as the project stands, I wouldn't run it against any production box because you're going to be finding crap in your OpenStack environment for months.
Find crap for people. So
tenants, users, roles.
So yeah, and I think they've done some improvements really recently with the naming, so it's easier to search for stuff by a certain naming pattern to be able to clean it up. But So we basically worked around that by, we created some heat templates to generate, and some scripting to generate a bunch of tenants and then a bunch of load on those tenants to kind of do some load testing in our sandbox environments before we deployed to our production for developers. So
yeah, so the thing to understand about Rallying Tempest is that there's still certain assumptions that they make. So if you go run it against your environment, things are going to break. But you can use it as baseline. So if you run your tests before you do an upgrade, or before you practice your upgrade, and you know your successes and failures, and then you run that again after you upgrade. Then you diff those and you see what's changed, if anything. You're probably never going to have a completely 100% pass rate, but you can use those deltas from one release to another.
It's nice. It gives you, what failed. It tells you the stack trace of it. You can investigate it. Do I care? Maybe not. Maybe you do. I mean, it just gives you a lot of output. It takes a little while to wade through it, but it's a good tool, and I look forward to watching it evolve.
So, Rallying Tempest is testing scalability and functionality, or did we deploy a different tool to test?
It's kind of both. I think it tests. I mean, you can do a significant amount of load testing with it. You can also do like API verification and validation. It has a battery of test cases that runs against Openstack APIs.
The heat templates were good for sort of load testing against the API. So because of the heat, you can launch a bunch of templates simultaneously, so they'll get the APIs pretty heavily if that was useful. As long as we got to the point where we were doing some maybe non-real world things and got maybe a little ahead of ourselves. So I think we ended up with some hesitation because of some of the results we were seeing, and then after some analysis realized, well, we're actually just pushing it harder than it's realistic, and so kind of walked that back a bit to get our confidence back to go with the upgrade.
I see Travis kind of nodding his head.
Well, no, I agree. I totally agree. That was we at first were like, oh my gosh, you can't spin up so many thousand routers per second.
The question realism came in, is that realistic? Right?
Well, realism in 10 o'clock at night came in, we had to do the upgrade, so.
It was time to go.
I think that's one area maybe we didn't cover is when you try to do a simple upgrade on a very small environment with very small variables, right? It goes through successfully, and you're like, oh yeah, this is no big deal, man. It just works. But the key that we were focusing on is actually trying to replicate our dev environment, which was very highly scaled, right, and highly utilized. And I think by us focusing on trying to replicate that helped us in the end as well, right? Yeah.
Great. Any questions here before I have one more question? Yeah.
Did you guys discover anything in that we have that was integrated, looking back at all that?
Repeat the question. I'm not sure.
So I guess the question was, after we did all that, were there still problems? And in or lessons learned? And yeah, there was still and so there was actually, and it was a scale issue, and it had to do with Juno and Neutron. And so it didn't really expose itself until over time it was running and just having a certain number of routers, and we just saw that when it was trying to scan the routers again, that was causing that huge CPU spike. And so, yeah, we just didn't test that load scenario. And
even in the sandbox that we had, it still didn't show itself, because we would maybe have 20 load average from an L3 router sync, but that didn't tell us that there was a regression where if you tried to delete multiple instances with floating IPs attached, you could have some sort of concurrent port race condition failure where two Neutron server instances would try to delete the same port, and then the L3 agents would then say, oh, well, we had some sort of failure getting a port, so we're going to trigger a full sync the next time this happens. And if you have the default, which is every 40 seconds, and anyone tries to do some sort of concurrent deletion, now you're taxing your CPU, 100% every 40 seconds, which we didn't see at all until we upgraded, but we got that patch out very quickly.
But in hindsight, looking at that, is there anything that we look back and say, well, we should have tested this. No, I mean, there are going to be things that you just don't anticipate.
Yeah. And even
can't
though it's prod, I mean, we had it running in prod, it's just not a scale issue with depth. I mean, we never saw the issue in production just because there's not as many things.
But the good thing is now we know about it and we can make a test so we don't have another regression. So I think that's one thing, we try to capture all these things we find, and so we just add a new test and then don't have to worry about, you know, seeing that problem again because we'll catch it, we'll have a test for it. So.
Great question. Any other questions? Yeah.
Are you saying the easiness to build the VM? And what I mean by that is, if I'm a customer and I have access to build 1,000 VMs and I only need 10, I might just build 1,000 VMs anyway. So do you monitor their utilization? Do you give them quotas?
Quotas. Yeah. So I think the thing that's going to be the danger is quotas will continuously grow as people incrementally add to them, and there's no kind of force that's kind of pushing back on that. So that is a danger, I think. But right now, quotas have really been, I think, helping that slower growth rate.
And right now, if you want anything more than 40, I think it's 40 VMs or 100 or a terabyte of disk, you have to physically talk to someone to get it.
Yeah,
It's kind of a game. It's kind of a
The
game.
cool thing about how we structured it too is, I think, is that we also have, like in our request for an Openstack project, it's a ServiceNow form. We also have, for a small project, which is 10 VMs, and I forget exactly, it's pretty small quota. I mean, it's like an insta verification. You don't have to talk to anybody, so you can get started really quick and cut your teeth. There's not much friction to actually getting a tenant, but you know, we do have more checks and balances involved when you want a larger tenant. And when you get to prod, there's even a little bit more verification that you're prepared to enter that environment with a proper architecture.
I guess for me, my question is if I'm a tenant and I'm being lazy, how are you assuring me as a tenant that I'm not wasting resources? So if I bought 1,000 resources, I have a big paycheck.
That's a good question, especially with pulling at piece.
I think the challenge too has been Salometer hasn't really scaled well for us right now, and so I think we've been kind of trying to figure out how to create a good Salometer service so that people can kind of get some of those metrics. We had a really long TTL set for it for a while, and that was really killing Mongo. So I think we're kind of going to strip it back a bit, and then hopefully, projects like Noki for the time series data to kind of split that off and put it kind of in a more appropriate database will help us kind of scale that to give our tenants a little bit more of that insight into their usage.
Right, and we don't do a chargeback at all, and there's a debate about that, whether it's useful, and that is the risk in doing that. So what we probably will be doing is implementing a better showback, and actually putting some numbers to that. And then I would imagine that ultimately we'll probably have some monitoring. One of the things that in prod especially we're talking about in our image management and blessed images and patched images and things like that. So one of the things we're going to do is monitor age of VMs, and the base image, and start reporting those things back that the tenants do. And so obviously, if you've got a tenant where all of their VMs were spun up, a year ago, and they haven't added or changed anything, probably they need to be talked to.
The second question I had was, are you doing any elastic provisioning, meaning that Black Friday hits up, right? I now want to spin up like
Autoscale.
10 times. Are you doing that automatically for anything real production, or are you just reallocating?
The lack of mature Salometer can prevent that, because it's really heat that's going to drive that through Salometer. But yeah, that's certainly a customer ask that we need to provide.
So do you want to talk a little bit about the expectation that we have of the customer? I know this is a question that I faced earlier, is like, how do we draw the line between what's expected of you guys in maintaining the environment versus what we expect of our developers and creating their instances and maintaining their own application? So if there's an application, say in prod, that has to scale, how is that done? I mean, or what are we doing to aid them? Nothing?
Nope.
I think, you know, I mean, we talk about cloud architecture and, you know, being able to develop the HA into the on the application level, but I think developers still want stability. I mean, and we still need to try to provide that. You know, it's been a challenge here and there, but I mean, I think we're in a pretty good place now to deliver.
So this is probably a good segue into just a scale question of hardware, right? How are we scaling our hardware? How do we stay ahead of that to make sure that we have enough hardware, right?
I think most of our capacity management has been kind of based around Datadog and just, again, our project manager, Matt Hollis, he kind of has his ear to the ground from like a greater enterprise perspective about what projects are coming down the pipe. So, I mean, we kind of very much have to manage our capacity in kind of in chunks. So, you know, there's probably more scientific ways we could be, you know, forecasting this, but right now it's kind of, well, you know, let's add additional capacity when we're able.
So there is some dialogue that happens up front when we onboard a new application into our production environment about expected usage and consumption of the environment.
Yeah, I think it's a lot easier for us to know what's going on in the production environment, whereas the dev environment has a lower barrier to entry, so there's been a lot more growth there. It's a little harder to predict, but yeah, luckily it's been pretty linear, so we've been able to just kind of linearly add stuff.
Knock on plastic.
Yeah.
Okay. What other questions you guys have? We're really dwindling down here. We've got the 20 important people left here that are really interested in this. What questions do you guys have for them? Yeah.
Are you doing backups again? Are you doing things up backups for the house that you provide for production?
Really, the tenants are responsible for their own backups.
So yeah. It's probably more traditional backup.
I mean, yeah, from a Ceph perspective, I mean, we provide 3 replicas in each of the pools. Yeah, but really, I guess, like I said, there's no expectation that your data is backed up in our environment. So. I mean, there's other enterprise teams that, if you wanted to contract them to do that for you, you could very much do that.
Yeah. Although I'd say, what was it, Rockshop?
Yeah.
There's an Openstack project now that looks really promising for that. And at some point, I think we'd like to take a look at that, but it's pretty new from what I can tell.
Great. Anything else, guys? There's a whole lot of stuff I know we could go in and talk to, but we've been up here for over 45 minutes, so any other questions from anyone in the crowd here?
Are you guys migrating out of legacy environments, or is this all just net new growth?
It's both.
Okay.
Yeah, we have large mainframe applications that are looking to become more cloud, or move some of those workloads out.
And how smooth are those migrations into this environment?
Those are still pretty nascent. So the bulk of it are the teams that are starting out and building up from the ground up cloud. So, but we have, if you're familiar with, if you've been to any of the DevOps or anything, Target has really moved to an agile. So we have a dojo. Teams come in for 30-day challenges and things like that. Sit down with us. They sit down with coaches and things like that. And so we're getting more and more of that, and it's just really kind of in the really early stages. There's a big learning curve for a lot of us folks, obviously.
Which I think is probably one of the reasons for our trend that we saw earlier, our organic growth, is the training that happens, and it's having organically people coming into the dojo area that we have, learning about how to do CI/CD. The pipeline and practices that go along with that, and they take that back to their teams, they go off, they learn, they request more environments, and it happens by word of mouth, essentially. It seems like this. Yeah.
KVM, Docker, both?
Right now, KVM, yeah. So, yeah, I mean,
a lot of interest in Docker and containerization, Kubernetes.
I think
some OpenShift that's been deployed in POC.
Magnum looks really promising as a way to kind of do some of that, but I think at a more simpler level, it might be just to have the heat plug-in for Docker might be a way to get people started. So.
Okay. Anything else?
Feel free to grab any of us when we get off the stage.
Yeah. I'd like to say thank you to everybody who's here left, and say thank you to the panel here. Good job. Thanks for making this available. And have to do it again soon. Thanks.